Good afternoon, El Segundo, and thank you for tuning in and watching our virtual town hall meeting. The City of El Segundo has been receiving numerous questions, and we wanted to be very responsive to our community with regards to our questions, given these certain challenging and unprecedented times. And first and foremost, we'd like you to know that it is the City of El Segundo's desire to ensure the health and welfare of all of our citizens. And so we put together this virtual town hall to respond to the community's questions. With me today, we have City Manager Scott Mitnick. We also have Police Chief Bill Whalen. We also have Fire Chief Chris Donovan, and our Incident Commander of our All-Hazard Incident Management Team, Jeff Lehman. So what's going to happen today is we're going to go over a quick little chronology of the incident as it's occurred over the past month or so, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists to give a little brief summary of the different actions that they have been taking within their respective departments or organizations, and then we'll get right into your questions. So in regards to the chronology of the incident, in December 2019, a novel or new coronavirus was first detected in Wuhan, Hubei province, People's Republic of China, causing outbreaks of the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 that has now spread globally. The Secretary of Health and Human Services declared a public health emergency on January 31st, 2020. Spread of the virus continued to increase, and then on March 4th, Governor Newsom made a declaration of emergency in response to the continuing spread. Also on March 4th, LA County proclaimed a local emergency, and the LA County Health Officer declared a local health emergency. On March 11th, the World Health Organization declared the virus to be a global pandemic. On March 13th, President Trump declared the existence of a national emergency pertaining to the pandemic, and then on March 16th, El Segundo proclaimed a local state of emergency, issued an administrative order requiring the closure of non-essential businesses, and activated its all-hazards incident management team and its emergency operations plan. On March 17th, the City Council signed a resolution of local emergency. Then on March 19th, the governor and county issued a stay-at-home order, and at the same day, El Segundo issued an order closing the parks and facilities. As we get into the organizational summaries, I'll first turn it over to City Manager Scott Mitnick.
Well, thank you. To answer the first question, correct?
Just provide an overview of what the city has been doing in response to the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Well, first let me just say what a privilege and an honor it is to be here. Public service is a privilege, and to be in a leadership role, whether you're an incident manager, a fire chief, or a police chief, or a city manager, it's a real honor. So with that privilege and honor comes a great deal of responsibility, and I couldn't be prouder to be sitting here with these gentlemen and with you, Randy, of the leadership role you've demonstrated in being our emergency services manager. For those watching, we are among a small number of cities actually that have the position that you hold, definitely for a city of under 100,000 in population. All the years of training among all of our 365 full-time equivalent employees, it's paying off. And what's happened over the past few weeks is a testimony to that. This community is well positioned to weather this pandemic, and it shows with each day. And I appreciate the professionalism and the calmness that these gentlemen and their staff have demonstrated to date. So as a local government, as a city, we fall under the directives and orders that come from the national government, in this case the President of the United States, the national government, the state of California, orders that come from the governor, and then from the county. And emergency orders come from a county from different levels. In this case, it's largely the County Department of Public Health. And we fully comply with those directives and those orders and guidelines. And sometimes if the public wonders, well, why aren't you doing this or that? It's because we're fully complying with the county's guidelines and orders. And I encourage everybody to go to the city's website. If you're ever in doubt what we're doing or why we're doing it, go to the website. We're doing a stellar job communicating with the public 24/7, and we're updating the webpage on a regular basis. And we have other means of communicating with the public through social media, whether it's Facebook, the Nixle format, or whatnot. So these gentlemen can bring you up to speed on the technical steps that we have taken. And by the way, to be clear, in terms of the city making a proclamation or doing administrative orders, we're very careful here in El Segundo not to overstep. We like to be in sync with the county and the state. We're just very careful that way. And we did our proclamation for the emergency early on. We were very quick to set up the all hazardous incident management team to be ready and in front of this emergency. We've done a stellar job. And we've issued a couple administrative orders. So I hope that answers your question there.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And next up is Chief of Police, Bill Whalen.
Well, good afternoon, El Segundo. It is always my honor to be your Chief of Police, and especially now during these trying times. What I want to let you know is, like many of you, we have had to adapt the way that we do business, and we do that in an effort to keep our employees safe and to keep you, the public, safe as well. We have a nearly 100-year history of being fully engaged in this community and providing outstanding and quality service to this community. And so as we reevaluate our staffing plans and our policing model, we keep that as our overarching guidance, and we still adhere to those basic foundational principles that this department was based on. You may notice a little bit of a difference. For non-emergency calls, you may be directed to our online reporting system. You may have an officer call you on the phone, but I want to let you know we're doing that to preserve the health of our employees so that if there's an emergency, if you see a crime in progress or anything suspicious, we want you to call 911 and we have the resources to respond. I'm very confident that we put a plan in place that will allow us to weather this storm that we're currently in and continue to keep you safe. One thing I do want to talk about, we received several questions on parking. We have suspended the parking enforcement for 72-hour violations as well as street sweeping violations. And really we've done that to be supportive of all of you, because we understand that you are complying with the Safer at Home order, and we don't want to make it more difficult if you've got to continuously try to jockey your car around. So we've suspended those violations, but it's important to note that all the other violations are still being enforced, so that whether it be parking in a handicapped spot or in a red zone or blocking somebody's driveway, that's not allowed, and we will issue citations for that. And so I would ask anybody that notices that or is experiencing that, please call the police department and we will respond and take care of that. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Chief, and for all the great work you and your officers are doing. Next is Fire Chief Chris Donovan.
Hi, good afternoon, El Segundo. Thank you for this opportunity. El Segundo Fire Department is an all-risk organization. We respond to all risks, including pandemics. Our motto has been and continues to be courtesy and service. We continue to provide exceptional life safety services to our community, and that has not changed through this unprecedented time. We're placing the needs of our community first. We're putting our firefighters in harm's way to protect the well-being and the safety of our community. But we're doing it in a safe and smart way. Our firefighters, we're fully staffed, we're fully equipped, we're ready to respond 24 hours a day. We're partnering with and communicating with our county fire departments, with our South Bay fire departments, and most importantly, working with our own EMS agency and our paramedic coordinator and our medical director, Dr. Mark Cohen, to ensure that our firefighters have the right equipment, they're taking the right precautions, and they're providing exceptional service to our community. That said, because we live in the fire station just like you live at home, we're practicing the same safe at home that you practice in your home. The fire station, the firefighters are social distancing. They're making sure that they follow proper hygiene. We're making sure that our equipment that we wear on calls is left in the apparatus bay and not brought into the fire station itself. We're monitoring each day the health and well-being of our firefighters on duty. We do temperature checks in the morning and the evening time. Our supervisors are making sure that our firefighters are healthy and safe. And in doing that, we're making sure that we do not interrupt our effective service delivery. Rest assured, we're prepared to respond to whatever need you have. Feel free to dial 911 if you have an emergency. Regardless of what that emergency is, we're here to come and serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to your firefighters. Next up is the incident commander of our All Hazards Incident Management Team. I will say, as the emergency management coordinator for the city, this is one team that I'm very proud of, and the development that has gone into this incident management team for handling situations just like this. So, Incident Commander Jeff Lehman, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with that team?
Yes, Randy. Good afternoon, El Segundo. My name is Lieutenant Jeff Lehman. I am the incident commander for the All Hazards Incident Management Team here in El Segundo for this COVID-19 incident. A quick overview of what we do on the incident management team. We're essentially a one-stop shop for all the other city departments. Whatever equipment they need to procure, whatever services that need to be taken care of, they come to the team and we make sure that they get what they need and the services are taken care of. The team structure, it's made up primarily of city employees from different departments. We're also getting assistance from a company called IRTA. They're giving us consultation as we go through this. Team Rubicon has volunteers, and Boeing is also giving us a volunteer from their fire department. A lot of help there. One of our primary functions is documentation. We're documenting every hour every employee puts towards this COVID-19 incident, as well as we're documenting everything that's purchased related to it. The idea is at the end of this incident, when we're able to ramp everything down, we can submit for reimbursement to FEMA. It's the responsible thing to do. And our number one objective is to provide for the health and safety of the public, first responders, and city employees. I mean, the bottom line is we're doing everything we can to keep the public and the employees safe. Be prepared for what might ever come up. We're always thinking about what might happen tomorrow and try to be prepared for it today. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Jeff. Over the past several days, we've been accepting questions from the public via email so we could prepare for this virtual town hall meeting. One of the many questions that we received was in regards to the way that we document the number of people that are COVID positive. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about how that process actually works. I think many of you that have seen the news see the federal stats. We see the state stats coming out of California Department of Public Health, and then we see our county stats, and then the LA County Department of Health has also provided a breakdown of where our COVID positive cases are, in which case today El Segundo has a number of 8. But many of the questions that we received were in respect to what's the status of those individuals, where is the location of those individuals, and have they recovered, have they died, and we wanted to respond to many of those questions. First and foremost, there's a federal law called HIPAA that prevents us from sharing any type of public health information about patients. And so forth. The LA County Department of Public Health doesn't even share that information to us here at El Segundo. So we really have no understanding of the location of the individuals, and therefore cannot and would not be sharing that with you even if we had that information. As far as deaths are concerned, and I know that we've been reporting that in our daily reports, and that's something that you're actually going to see go away, because LA County Department of Public Health will never tell us if unfortunately a death does occur. So we're going to be eliminating that from our reports in the future, as we would never receive that information. We also received questions about whether the individuals have recovered. Many of you that have been staying close to the news know that we've reached 8, but that number has remained fairly constant. It's grown slowly, and so those earlier numbers of 1, 2, 3, and 5 have lasted longer than 2 weeks. So the questions we've received are, did those people get better? Are they recovered? Again, HIPAA protected information and information that is not shared with us. So we will not be able to share that with you. So that's just a little bit of overview of how that information flows down to us at El Segundo, and why we're reporting and in the manner that we're reporting it to you, the citizens. So without further ado, let's get into our questions for the presenters. The first question is for City Manager Scott Mitnick. Scott, will face coverings be required, And will the city provide them?
Randy, that's a great question. And the four of us and other city employees and the city council, we've been struggling with this because we are seeking clarity. And at this point in time, we don't have that clarity in terms of the city will continue to comply with the county order and the county direction. So right now, as of the time of this town hall, the direction is still to, it's not required, but it's recommended by the county for individuals to have face coverings. I will share, though, our fire department, it is required for the fire personnel when they go out that they have the approved face coverings. And there's, our firefighters are trained specifically how to put them on, how to take them off, and they have a whole set of protocols that they have to adhere to. Aside from firefighters, no other city employees are mandated or required to wear face coverings during the day or during their business. Now, for our residents and our businesses and our general employees, again, it's recommended by the county, but it's not required. So we'll continue to comply with the county orders.
And if I could add to that, please, the firefighters wear the masks on calls. And we're wearing them now on every call we go on because we're most likely potentially interacting with the public. So it could be a traffic collision, it could be a fire alarm activation, or certainly an EMS call, emergency medical services call. And so the masks that we're wearing are medical grade masks. They're called the N95. You probably heard a lot about that on the news. And so we're required to wear those on all calls because we're, in essence, breaking the social distancing requirements that we've asked all the residents to comply to. So for that reason, we have proper, it's called personal protective equipment, or PPE, and the face masks that we wear are part of that routine PPE for our emergency response protocols. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chief. Thank you for that, Scott.
So Randy, and for you and for the viewers for clarification, so the city is providing the face covering for the fire personnel, but we are not providing them for residents, businesses, or other employees. But if the county rules change, we will fully comply.
Thank you for that. The next question is for Chief Whalen. Chief, is the City of El Segundo handing out citations for not following social distancing guidelines? And what about violations of any other order?
Well, thank you, Randy. As has been alluded to, these are very confusing times. There are a multitude of directives that are out there, and we understand that, whether it be from the county or the city. But it's important for everybody to understand that those orders do carry the full weight of the law on them, and violation of those orders are misdemeanor crimes. Now, we have chosen to handle situations that are potential violations of these orders with warnings. We feel as though that's the best way to engage our community and to get compliance, because really the ultimate goal is not enforcement. The ultimate goal is compliance with the remain at home orders that are out there. And so far, warnings have worked. But, and I want to underscore but, we could resort to issuing citations if at any point we feel as though the warnings are ineffective, or if we start to see an increase in people violating those orders. And I know there are some upcoming questions where we're going to get into some more nuanced things that are allowed or disallowed, but in general, that's the stance we're taking as of now. So there have been no citations issued, but we could issue them in the future if we feel it's necessary to maintain everyone's health and safety.
Thank you, Chief. Next question is for Fire Chief Donovan. Chief, can we have friends or family come to visit us socially at our home if we take precautions?
This is a tough one, and the answer is no. El Segundo is a unique community. Unlike most, there's an amazing sense of community here in El Segundo. The fact that we have so many parks and Little League is such an important part of our culture, and youth sports and soccer, and we've got a great downtown district with vibrant restaurants, and we've got this amazing sense of community. That said, the order that was given on March 19th by the governor, signed as the Safer at Home order, strictly prohibits social activities and gatherings such as that. And this is tough. I understand that this is an emotional time for everybody, and we tend to gravitate towards our family and friends, and we need to have that sense of community here. But I would encourage everyone in our town to heed the warnings and stay safe at home. And that includes not having socialization, social gatherings at your home, not having friends and family members come to your home. Stay close with your family, stay safe at home, only go outside for essential services, follow proper distancing. You're going to hear this over and over and over again. The theme here is we want our community to stay safe, and unfortunately, having social gatherings at your house is not the way to stay safe.
Thank you, Chief. Next question for Incident Commander Lehman. Jeff, should we be concerned with all the essential employees that come into El Segundo each day and are potentially spreading the virus from other cities?
Well, the easy answer is if you're following the Safer at Home guidelines, you wouldn't have to worry anymore about an essential employee than you would your neighbor that you cross paths with when you're going for a walk. The same rules apply for everybody. So, and this brings up a different point for me. It's time for compassion when it comes to this subject. When you're thinking about the guy that works at the grocery store, the girl that's delivering for Amazon, or the employee at the gas station, these essential employees, they're in harm's way. They are the ones that are being exposed to hundreds of people a day. And I don't think they feel comfortable about it either. I think they would probably rather be home following the Safer at Home order. So you have to kind of think of it that way as well. I think that if you're following the standard guidelines when you're coming in contact with essential employees or anybody, you should be fine. Now, I can tell you I'm married to a healthcare worker, and we've discussed this. And the way that we handle it is we assume that everybody around us is COVID positive. Obviously, not everybody around us is COVID positive. Maybe none of the people around us are. But we feel the safest way to operate is assume that everybody is. And so after we have interactions with people, we wash our hands. We don't get within 6 feet of people, even people that we're friendly with other than each other. We just don't do that. You know, if you're buying groceries, just wash everything really good. I think that's a practice that everyone has to take. I really believe it's more in our control than most people believe. So again, to answer the question about essential employees, we're just like everybody else. Stay 6 feet away and follow the standard guidelines.
Thank you for that, Lieutenant. Chief Whalen, I'd like to come back to you with a question. If we encounter a friend on a walk and we stop and talk standing at least 6 feet apart on a public street or sidewalk, are we violating any rules?
Well, the short answer to that, Randy, is no, you're not. Keep in mind that the orders that we have allow you to go outside and exercise as long as you are within your family unit or the unit that you live with in your house, and then you're maintaining 6 foot separation from everyone else. So if you're out on a walk within your family environment or within the people that you live with, and you encounter somebody else and you're maintaining that social separation, that in and of itself wouldn't be a violation of the ordinance. But remember, the spirit and intent of this is to avoid large gatherings and keep people in their homes. So if that walk were to turn into a congregation of people that were all maintaining 6 foot separation on a street corner because everybody's friends, that could be seen as a gathering, and gatherings are prohibited by the order. So encourage you to say hello and wave, but not linger too long, and keep on your way and get your exercise in.
Thank you, Chief. Another topic that we received over the past several days, we received numerous questions about, was the operations that are occurring at Dockweiler RV Park. And first and foremost, I would like to tell our residents that Dockweiler RV Park is not a part of El Segundo in terms of it's not in our jurisdiction. And the operations that have been arranged there are operations that are above and beyond anything that we're doing in El Segundo. It was arranged by Los Angeles County. And so for us to speak about their particular operations would would not really be in our purview. That being said, we keep in close contact with Los Angeles County Office of Emergency Management and Los Angeles County Health Department, and monitor the situation very closely. And they have provided us some speaking points with regards to Dockweiler RV Park. First and foremost, the park has been established as a place where we can either take people that we believe have been exposed or are exposed to COVID-19 for them to undergo testing. And these are individuals who cannot self-isolate or quarantine in their own residence and need county support for whatever reason that may be. There is an LA County team that will work with private sector and faith-based and non-governmental organizations and governmental partners to support those in isolation or quarantine with what they call wraparound services to ensure their safety, health, and well-being. This action was an emergency action, and it's not the only one that's happening within LA County. There are 8 sites very similar to this one. And it's an emergency action that the county is taking to comply with the Department of Public Health orders to keep our county safe. So we gratefully ask for your support in regards to the operations there. And if you have questions specific to those operations, please direct them to Los Angeles County. Although I will say the beaches are closed, the trails are closed. We're asking you to stay at home. So staying away from the area shouldn't be out of line. So we just ask our residents to avoid the area. So our next question will go back to City Manager Scott Mitnick. Scott, there has always been a curfew for minors in town. Is there currently a curfew for adults?
Well, that's a good question. The short answer is no. There is no curfew for adults. We, like many cities, do have the curfew for minors. Those are individuals under the age of 18. They are generally not allowed to be out after 10 p.m. or before 6 a.m. So the answer is no. And again, it's a good opportunity to remind you and our viewers that the city will continue to comply with all the various state and county directives and guidelines.
Thank you, Scott. And then the next question for Police Chief Whalen. Chief, will El Segundo ban door-to-door solicitations?
No, Randy, we're not going to ban door-to-door solicitations. It's our opinion that doesn't violate the provisions, either the local ordinance or the county ordinance. I would encourage people who are concerned by this or concerned about getting, I guess, potentially contaminated handbills distributed to their house. The CDC has suggestions and recommendations on how you can decontaminate things and how you should handle things that you're not certain of. And so if you feel the need to handle something that was left at your front porch or whatever and you're concerned about it, I'd refer you to those resources to figure the best way to do that.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Next question for Fire Chief Donovan. Chief, if I work from home, is it still okay to have my nanny come over every day to watch my baby?
So the governor's Safer at Home ordinance did talk about essential care, essential workers and daycare. And in fact, it does permit daycares and it does permit babysitters for those essential workers. Even if you're a stay-at-home essential worker, technically you would comply, comply with that order. I will say this with a qualifier, and I'm going to use, much like Lieutenant Lehman, I'll use my own family situation. We are adhering strictly to the Safer at Home processes and orders. We are really maintaining social separation and making sure that nobody comes into our home. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, I have no way of determining that person coming into my home, whether they have been employing the same safe distance, social distancing, hand washing requirements. And again, we know, and there's lots of information about people that are asymptomatic. They don't have symptoms, but they're carrying the virus. And that's something that you need to weigh into this decision. So I know I'm personalizing this a bit and giving you my own personal opinion. The short answer is yes, you can have a nanny. You can take your child to babysitting if you're an essential employee. But personally, I would caution you on doing that. And if so, make sure that that babysitter is following safe distancing and good cleaning and interacting appropriately with heightened cleaning and distancing requirements, which the order does talk about.
That's great advice, Chief. Thanks for that and that clarification on the ruling there. Next question, I think, is a great question for Incident Commander Lehman. Lieutenant, the LA Times reported that LA County has told citizens to not go outside this week. Is that correct? And if so, can you provide some guidance along those lines?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one I'm asked quite a bit. So as city manager mentioned, we adhere to the Los Angeles County public health guidelines. And they have some guidelines for their safer at home order. These guidelines are on the El Segundo website. It's also on the Los Angeles County Public Health website. I'll summarize them very quickly. It's a pretty long document, so I do recommend everybody listening that is interested go and read that themselves. But essentially, the safer at home order requires residents to stay home unless performing essential activities. All beaches, piers, trails have been closed. Practice social distancing, which, as we know, is 6 feet. Prohibits gathering amongst people not in the same household. Businesses that used to be walk-in need to be they're no longer open for stop-in type businesses, and for restaurants, takeout or delivery only. Like I said, there's a lot more to it, but that's what we're following. That's kind of everything that we're doing right now, and if that changes, then we're going to change.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And we did get many questions about the safer at home, and there was a couple that were very specific about, hey, what can I do or what can't I do? So we wanted to address that pretty directly. And first and foremost, the things that you can do is you can go get food. You can go to the grocery, you can go to a restaurant to get takeout, or you can certainly get delivery as well. You can go to the pharmacy to get your medications or supplies. You can go to a bank or a post office. And you can also go to get to the gas station, as well as, if you need to, you can ride public transit, walk, bike, and drive. So those are the things that you specifically can do. What you can't do, or what you shouldn't do, is you shouldn't hold any social gatherings, as we've already discussed. You shouldn't hoard supplies or overbuy. You can't go to a bar, club, except to take food to go. You can't go to a gym or a theater or a bowling alley, arcade, or a music venue. You cannot dine in a restaurant. You can't go to a playground or go to a non-essential retail store or mall. But and lastly, and maybe more importantly, the one thing you should not do is put seniors or those with underlying health conditions at risk by going out and interfacing with them. So we please just ask you to stay at home. Next question, again, for City Manager Scott Mitnick. Scott, what additional help is the City of El Segundo providing to small businesses?
Randy, that's another good question. I'm really proud of the city's effort here, and this is a great example of how this city is shining in response to this crisis for the community, especially the small businesses, in particular businesses on Main Street and other parts of the downtown. It was a few weeks ago. It seems like a few weeks ago. I was asked to attend a meeting with Mayor Drew Boyles and Mayor Pro Tem Carol Perstuck with about, I think, a dozen or maybe 2 dozen local restaurant owners and bar owners, and I think, Fire Chief, you were there with me. And that was in the early stages of this whole effort, if you will, or pandemic, as it was playing out, and it looked like an order was going to come down to close the restaurants, and our local restaurants were very concerned about how that was going to impact them. And out of that meeting, and it was a great dialogue, great exchange of information, that was the starting point for what came to be known and what is in place today as Gundo to Go. And you can get more information about that at gundotogo.com, but our residents can use that service to get food brought to them. And it's just been wonderful, the success of that. It reflects the partnership with this city council, the business community, and the Chamber of Commerce. 3 critical legs to that stool, and it's working wonderfully. So that's one way this city is doing what it can to help small businesses. Just go to our website, go to the city's website, its social media platforms, and you'll see more. In particular, there's elsegundobusiness.com. That's a great resource for small businesses. The city has sent out and continues to send out over 6,600 emails and updates to our businesses of all sizes, big, small, medium, to help make sure that they're aware of resources that are available to them. So again, bottom line, go to the city's website to find out more what we're doing for small business. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And the next question for Chief Whalen. Chief, I see people hanging out, playing with other families. They're at Library Park, they're at Rec Park. I see them at the high school track and football field. These areas or fields are closed, correct? And is there anything that can be done?
They are absolutely closed. They're not open. And as has been mentioned by numerous people up here, parks and the like have been closed pursuant to our order. The schools have closed down their sites, and people should not be there. And, you know, in an earlier question, I talked about an area that was a little gray. This whole, you know, what if we're congregating on a street or something? And you know what? I get that's confusing, and that's why we're here to work with you. If you are hopping a fence with a locked gate, that should not be confusing to anybody that you're not supposed to be there. That should, to you, be, in your mind, a clear violation of what's occurring, including our parks, which are all posted that you're not supposed to be in there. And it is a little bit level of frustration that they're, to me, that's selfish. To me, that those people who do that are selfish people, and they're putting themselves above the community. And when we have to send police officers out there to warn them, now our officers are at risk for contracting this virus. And that would be truly tragic if we had to quarantine a shift of officers because they were engaging in that type of contact with somebody who knew better, who quite frankly knew better. And so yes, those areas are all closed to the public. The public should not be there. And if you see that, if you see people gathering in closed areas, please call us. We would like to know, and we'll come out and deal with it appropriately.
Thanks, Chief. I got a follow-up for you. So my neighbors have people coming and going. Should I report them somehow?
Well, I think I'll expand on what and maybe even put an exclamation point on what the fire chief said earlier. We shouldn't be going to each other's houses. The order is designed around organic family units, staying together. We understand that, and it's not realistic to expect everybody in a household that lives together to maintain that social separation, et cetera. But the order is pretty clear about gatherings, public and private. And so from that standpoint, if people feel a gathering's taking place, please give us a call. And you know, we are subject by the Constitution and so forth as far as determining what's going on, but we actually have gotten many calls already about what people think are gatherings that are occurring, and our officers are going out. And in most all of the cases, it's really about education and helping people understand why what they're doing. We get it. This is a great community, and people want to be social. But it's important that they understand now more than ever, it's critically important that they abide by the rules. So yes, if you see what you believe a gathering is occurring, please call us and let us kind of sort that out.
Thank you, Chief. Next question for Chief Donovan. Chief, can you please explain COVID-19 testing opportunities for the public?
Sure, be happy to. Free testing of COVID-19 is now available for any resident within Los Angeles County. The county and the city of Los Angeles have partnered together. There's a website, coronavirus.lacity.org/testing. I would encourage residents to go to that website and to learn more about the free testing. If you're on that website, you'll see there's a video that talks about the process of finding test locations. Currently, there are 13 locations throughout the county of Los Angeles. The closest one in the South Bay is at the South Bay Galleria in Redondo Beach. That website also provides an online application because there is a priority for testing of residents. And that priority is, first and foremost, we want to, the county and the city of Los Angeles want to encourage people that are symptomatic. That is, they have fever, they have cough, they have shortness of breath and body aches to be the priority for being tested. Secondly, those are under a 14-day quarantine, meaning either they have been exposed to somebody that's positive COVID-19, or they're in close proximity, say a loved one or family member in the same household has been tested positive for COVID-19. Those individuals will take priority. And then, of course, anyone who's over 65 years of age or has underlying chronic health conditions, they will also be provided a priority test. First responders, healthcare professionals, and critical government workers will also be considered as a high priority for testing. And if you meet these requirements and you're offered a same-day test, it's a drive-up and drive-through process where you're provided a swab to do a mouth sample. The video shows the way in which you take your own sample of saliva in your mouth and you put it into a tube, and you wrap the tube up into a bag, and you drop the bag off into a collection site, and within several days you'll get a result of that COVID-19 test. That said, and again, this is a free of charge test for anybody in Los Angeles County that meets these requirements. I think it's important to note this is a great opportunity and a great service, and I would encourage people that meet these criterion that they could follow up and go to that website to get more information and potentially get a test. That said, the FDA still considers healthcare professional swabbing of the back of the nasal cavity through the nostril, this is known as nasal pharyngeal swabs, as being the most effective in terms of a true positive test or a true negative. The saliva test will sometimes have a variant factor of a false negative or a false positive on that test. And that's not to say that you can't get good results from the oral swab. What I'm suggesting for the residents of El Segundo, if you meet the criteria that you've got fever, shortness of breath, difficulty, cough, a dry cough in particular, the indications are that you have a real heaviness in your chest, and it's not just an occasional cough that you would have with perhaps allergies, but a real strong heaviness in your chest and cough, and particularly a fever of 100.4 or higher, you should first call your doctor and talk to your personal physician and get some guidance from your personal physician or your healthcare providers that perhaps can get you tested through their own health samples and do the nasopharyngeal swab. And if that's not available, the drive-through process on the online coronavirus.lacity.org/testing could be a good backup. And again, I applaud the city and county of Los Angeles for allowing these free tests. I think it's important that we get as many citizens of our area tested so that we can take affirmative action to isolate them and quarantine those that are testing positive. But if for the residents of El Segundo, I'm strongly recommending call your doctor first and see if you can get the nasopharyngeal swab.
Chief, just a follow-up there. We got many questions about asking if we have plans to bring testing specifically to El Segundo. Can you share a little bit about any plans for that and or who's really responsible for that testing operation?
Yeah, the testing is still a County of Los Angeles public health outreach opportunity. And so the free testing at the county is, again, this is a partnership between the City of Los Angeles and the County of Los Angeles. And so they're the ones that identify the locations, and there are 13 of them. Certainly as more test kits become available, which is becoming a reality, and as a supply and demand issue, so as we get more supply, we're able to put up more test locations. Certainly, I think it would be prudent for the county to recognize where a good location would be, and I would think that we would be a good spot. But again, we don't control that. That's controlled by the county and the City of Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Next question for Incident Commander Lehman, and I know that this is a great question for you because I know that we have quite a comprehensive operation going on at Park Vista. So, Lieutenant, what is being done for and how are the Park Vista residents?
Okay, so here's an example of how our city leaders got it right very early on. We're doing a lot of Park Vista, and we have been doing a lot of Park Vista since this all started rolling out. There's a lot of things I'm going to read right off my list so I don't miss anything. We've been conducting welfare phone calls for the residents. Not all residents want those phone calls, but those that do are getting those phone calls. This started from the very beginning with El Segundo city staff. We had some police department employees making calls as well as Park and Rec employees. Now the Bridge Church has some of their folks that are making those calls. We're offering a medication and grocery delivery service. It's a knock and drop service, and this is being done by Park Rec employees and Rotary employees. And this is important to point out for everybody listening. If you're a senior citizen, the medication and grocery delivery service is not limited to people that live in Park Vista. So you can go online, you can reach out to Park and Rec Department, and they can tell you how we can make this happen for you. But they'll pick up your medications, they'll pick up groceries for you and deliver them to you. The library staff is offering a book and movie delivery service to the residents of Park Vista. El Segundo TV will be airing a stay-home workout video for seniors. This was done by a trainer that works for the Recreation Department. When it's going to be released is to be determined. I don't know when it's going to be aired on El Segundo TV, but I do know that it's been completed just recently. We have staff positioned outside 7 days a week, outside Park Vista 7 days a week from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. And these are people that decontaminate incoming packages just to make sure that we don't introduce coronavirus into the building. And lastly, we are currently working with a medical service. It's a service that we're already contracted with on the police department side. We're going to get a nurse into Park Vista 3 days a week, 3 hours at a time. The plan is to have a nursing station for her downstairs, and the residents that would like to speak to a nurse can come down and speak to the nurse. This is going to be related to COVID-19 issues or concerns. This is not in replacement for their doctors or the 911 system. But folks may want to come down, just have them take a look at them and listen to their lungs. They may just want to talk to the nurse. This is a great thing too. And lastly, this is something I want to point out, the incident management team, they're doing exceptional work. This Park Vista thing's been going on for a while. I'm very proud of what they're doing here. A lot of service, a lot of compassion from the team on this and city leaders. So.
Thank you, Jeff. And our next question for City Manager Scott Mitnick. Scott, I know parks are closed, but are the trash cans being emptied? What about other city maintenance services?
Randy, thank you for that question. In a way, I feel like we're candidates in a debate or something, because I want to deflect from that question for a moment to follow up on the question and discussion on Park Vista. I made reference to an example of how this city shines with how we've dealt with or are dealing with the small business community. The way this city and this community is responding to Park Vista is another item that would be on the top 3 or 4 examples which sets El Segundo apart from other communities. And these 3 gentlemen in particular, for your roles and your suggestions early on in how to make sure Park Vista is secure. Fire Chief Chris Donovan in particular, you called this out to my attention very early on. Not to alarm people, but the fire chief came to me and said, we need to take steps and we need to do it now, because there are examples in the state of Washington and other parts of California where these type of communities have really struggled. So to the chief's credit and our police department, Police Chief Whalen's credit too, we became very proactive and worked with Neil Cadman and the management group there. I mean, if there's ever an example of a really collaborative process that's working, this is it. And very quietly and very much behind the scenes to make it work. We've pushed the envelope a little bit, but I'm very proud of the success so far. We'll knock on wood that continues. Okay, so I'll get to the question that you asked me. Yes, the parks are closed, and absolutely our trash cans, the receptacles, whether it's for general waste or recycled materials, they will definitely be serviced on a regular basis. If you think about it, we would be negligent if we didn't do that. A virus could take place there and spread and so on. So all of the trash cans will, by our various operators, will be serviced on a regular basis. And the individuals who are servicing those, they need to comply with the state and county guidelines and rules about how to conduct their business and the safe distance between workers and that type of thing. Now, as far as the maintenance of city maintenance services, much of the maintenance will continue. For example, streets and roads. We have an obligation to the community to make sure our roads and our streets and our sidewalks are safe and passable and that type of thing. We have had some calls out recently from residents with big trees during the inclement weather, with big tree limbs that came down. We will absolutely continue to make sure that the city and the community is safe in that regard. And then the facilities where our essential workers are working, like this building, the police station, the fire station, we will continue to maintain those services. I saw some workers yesterday dealing with some HVAC issues. They were out there in the rain making sure the air conditioning and heating units were working for our employees. Water and wastewater. We're going to continue to maintain those systems for our residents who are required to stay at home. We want to make sure when they turn the water on and they flush the toilet that those services are still provided. Those are just some examples. Where it's possible that it's not essential work, if we can delay that so we can practice maintaining the health and welfare of our employees, absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify that.
Thank you, Scott. Next question for Chief Whalen. Chief, I'm a personal trainer. Is it okay to have clients come over to get exercise, even if we are maintaining a safe distance and taking precautions?
Well, Randy, I think the theme of today is stay at home. That's what I think we're all trying to push that message out there. Unfortunately, gyms, fitness centers are not considered essential services. So to continue that practice would be a violation of the stay-at-home directive.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Chief Donovan, we know we have confirmed cases of COVID-19 in El Segundo. Will we be notified directly if we have been in contact with somebody who has tested positive for COVID-19?
Yeah, Randy, this is a really difficult subject, and you had mentioned earlier a federal law called the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. We refer to it as HIPAA. And HIPAA is a federal law that prohibits healthcare professionals, police, and fire from talking about an individual's health conditions. And in essence, it's we would violate the law, break the law, which is enforced by the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Civil Rights, if we were to identify an individual by name, location, and health condition. And that's still the case. What we have seen is the federal government has loosened some of the requirements as it relates to the sharing of information of patients that test positive for COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And the loosening has been effective in the stopping of the spread of the virus. And so where we're seeing a loosening of the law is in hospitals communicating with the public health department, who in turn communicates to local government, where hospitals perhaps would communicate back to the firefighters on a patient that we transported to the hospital that they've determined to be positive in COVID-19. We could then go back internally and make sure that our firefighters had proper protective equipment on and followed the guidelines that we've established for making sure they stay safe. And if not, then we could take corrective action and have that firefighter isolate and test. What's difficult here is that we can't share that information with the public. And so what we have been able to do is determine that the County of Los Angeles every day puts out an update on confirmed cases by the city. We know that we have 8 confirmed cases. We don't know where those 8 individuals reside. We know that their home resident and zip code is El Segundo, but we don't know if they're perhaps staying at a relative's home, if they're perhaps at the hospital seeking care. We don't know the patient outcome. That said, the County of Los Angeles does have guidance, and I would encourage all of our residents to go to the LA County Public Health website. And on that website, there is a pamphlet flyer about home isolation instructions. And in that, they talk about quarantine. And specifically, and I'd like to read this so that we get it right. If you are an individual who's tested positive and has close contact, so you're with family members or with friends in a close contact, and again, if you're following social distancing and making sure that people that are not in your immediate family are coming into your home, you shouldn't have to worry about this. But if you are determined to be positive, the county says, be sure to tell all of your close contacts that they need to be quarantined for 14 days after their last contact with you. Close contacts include all household members, any intimate contact, and all individuals who are within 6 feet of an individual for more than 10 minutes, starting 48 hours before the symptoms began. So if a patient that is testing positive was home, while at home, they had another family member that was within 6 feet for more than 10 minutes, then that individual should be notified that their loved one or family member or roommate has tested positive. And the things that we're concerning about are you're closer than 6 feet. Perhaps you've shared utensils in eating, which is another transmission. You haven't been doing proper disinfecting in those common areas, such as doorknobs, tabletops, computer screens, and computer mouses. And so it's up to the individual who's been tested positive to communicate to all of their close contacts within that time period. So it's 48 hours prior to being asymptomatic, or within 14 days of testing positive, they should be communicating that they've been a positive test.
It's great clarification. Thank you, Chief. Next question for Incident Commander Lehman. Lieutenant, is the Meals on Wheels program still running?
Yes, the Meals on Wheels program is running as usual. The only twist for that team is they're receiving the food a little differently than they were in the past, but the delivery is ongoing exactly the same.
Great, thank you. Last round of questions, starting with City Manager Scott Mitnick. Scott, farmers markets are allowed to be open. Does El Segundo have plans to resume its market?
The El Segundo Farmers Market is closed. All farmers markets are closed because they don't comply with the state and county orders about social distancing and so on. And we will be happy to resume once those orders are revised. So the farmers markets are simply not allowed at this time.
Okay, thank you. Chief Whalen, what resources are available to help homeless people in need?
So homelessness was probably, prior to this pandemic, one of the biggest societal challenges that we faced here in our nation, really. And that problem, that situation didn't go away just because the pandemic is here. I'd like to point people towards our website, which contains a wealth of information about resources available here in the City of El Segundo for homeless outreach. Additionally, there are new services coming online daily related to this specific COVID-19 pandemic and homelessness. And I would suggest that anybody who is homeless or experiencing homelessness look at the County of Los Angeles resources, and there are resources for medical and for isolation locations if you find yourself experiencing that. I will say, here in El Segundo, our department does a very good job of knowing who our homeless people are. So if you see somebody that's homeless, you don't need to call us and tell us that unless that person is committing a crime or is otherwise in need of medical attention.
Great, thank you, Chief. Chief Donovan, does a mask protect me or does it protect others?
Well, let's define mask. A mask that is a personal protective equipment worn by healthcare providers provides respiratory protection for that individual. A face cloth or face covering, which is a really, it's a topic that's gotten an awful lot of conversation, does not protect you from getting the virus. What this is another step of community mitigation. And we know that there are, through CDC, who's done a lot of research on this, the CDC has indicated that there are quite a few patients that are tested, that are positive with the coronavirus. They haven't necessarily been tested. So they are positive, they're carrying the virus, but they're asymptomatic, which means they don't have fever, they don't have cough, they don't have body aches, they don't have those signs and symptoms that we equate to the coronavirus. So they're walking around with mild to no symptoms at all, but they're shedding the virus. And what that means is they cough, they talk and as you talk, especially if you get agitated in the way that you talk, particles of spit and saliva come out of your mouth. They sneeze, and all of these are routes of exposure to others. And so the wearing of cloth face coverings is yet another step of community mitigation efforts. So it's to stop an individual who is testing positive for coronavirus but does not have symptoms. It's stopping that individual from shedding the virus onto someone else who may contract it and become symptomatic and have some significant medical concerns for them. So we're following the CDC guidelines. We're following, as City Manager Mitnick mentioned, we hold to the County of Los Angeles Public Health Officers guidelines. And right now, the use of cloth face coverings in the communities is a recommendation. And so we're recommending people that if they're out in public, if they're going to be closer than 6 feet, if they're going to be in social gathering locations, for instance, in a supermarket or pick up food where there's a few folks that are waiting to pick up their food or waiting to pick up groceries, that a recommendation is that they put a cloth face cover on in that situation. If you're at home, if you're out walking on the streets and you're not within 6 feet, if you're driving in your car by yourself, there's really no need to put on a face cloth from a medical perspective in terms of preventing the shedding of that. And again, social distancing, good, clean, hygiene with washing of your hands, cleaning the surfaces that are random touch areas is your best effort moving forward. And I will underscore this. This is really, really important. There's a shortage of personal protective equipment for healthcare providers in the hospitals, in clinics, and in for paramedics. Please, please, please leave the N95 masks, the P100 masks for the healthcare professionals who need them the most. Don't order or use those types of face coverings to comply with this cloth face covering recommendation.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Chief.
Thank you.
Incident Commander Lehman, is the city in need of volunteers?
Well, we love our volunteers, and whoever asked that question, I appreciate you just simply asking the question. So the city has a lot of volunteers. I want to say they're kind of in the queue. We're not really activating any of our volunteers yet. We have the Community Emergency Response Team. The Police Department has volunteers. Then there's also community organizations like Rotary, Chamber, Team Rubicon. I know the Women's Club are working on masks. But we really want people to stay at home. We really, I mean, we could always use volunteers, but I think more than anything, we want everybody to stay home. Even the volunteers that we have ready to go and the ones that we know and the ones that we're used to working with, we're not asking them to come in right now. So the same message we've been passing along this whole time is, as much as we appreciate it, what you can do for us, if you're a volunteer-minded person, is stay home.
Great. Thank you, Lieutenant. Last two questions for you, Scott. When will the inspection and/or permit process to restart for business construction, when will that occur? What's the status of that? And is there a difference between commercial and residential permitting and inspections?
Well, another good question. A lot of breadth and depth to these questions. So let me just remind everybody, again, I'll sound like a broken record, but this city, the City of El Segundo, will continue to comply with state and county orders and directives, and both have made it clear that for those businesses and uses that are essential, we will do inspections for. So, like a restaurant and that type of thing, if that's not considered essential, we're not doing that inspection. But a grocery store, for example, that's considered an essential use. So to make sure those type of operations, businesses are functioning, we'll definitely do inspections. And for several of the residential projects, if they fall under the essential category, those inspections will take place. Again, we have to take into consideration the safety of our employees doing the inspection, as well as the businesses, the business owners, and the workers and all that. again, falling underneath the umbrella of the state and county orders. Yeah, and as far as restarting, for those that are not essential businesses and uses, as soon as the state and county orders are revised, we'll be happy to do that. And to provide more clarity on this issue, we have a skeleton crew here, and if individuals need to transact business with them, they don't come into City Hall, but the plans are provided here, and then we'll take them, and then we get back to those individuals through a safe means.
Great, thank you. And last question. Is there any protection or program for the city, from the city, regarding senior citizens not able to pay their rent at this time?
Okay, this is a subject that's it's always fluid. It seems like, because there's a lot of discussion about rent control, about this topic. For our residents and those who are concerned, go to the city's website, go to the coronavirus frequently asked questions to get the latest, most current information on that. We do not have local rules on that. We fall under the state and county guidelines.
Great. Thank you, Scott. And thank you all presenters for giving us the clarifications to the community's questions. And thank you to the residents of El Segundo for watching. As always, please refer to the City of El Segundo website, www.elsegundo.org. Any questions that you may have and the answers aren't found there, please call the El Segundo Joint Information Center at 310-692-1699. This is a center that we stood up Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 to answer your specific questions. So please don't hesitate to contact us there. Again, thank you for your questions. Thank you for tuning in. Stay well and stay safe.
Hey, Randy?
Yes.
I'd like to add one final thing here. I mentioned earlier at the beginning that public service is a privilege and an honor. I would like to add, though, that managing an incident like this, dealing with an emergency like this, we're all tired, we're all exhausted, but we are trained to do this, whether you're in the fire profession or the law enforcement profession, the general management profession, the other first responders like Public Works. We spend our whole career training for this, and we're being tested. And so far, I give this group a solid A for their effort. But none of this would be possible. We wouldn't be allowed to have this discussion if it were not for the leadership, vision, and support of the City Council. So they deserve a lot of credit. They're not here, but we're sitting in their space. But this City Council approved the emergency operations plan that's in place, and they recently adopted it, I believe, in September of 2019, not that long ago. And that is the plan that's guiding how we are responding to this severe emergency. And this emergency is different than others because most emergencies are like a sprint. You have a big fire, it happens over a few hours or maybe a day or so or a little bit longer, or you have an earthquake, that type of thing. This is like a marathon emergency, and we don't know how long that marathon is, but we're going through it. I also want to acknowledge the council and thank them for their support to establish your position, Randy, to have an emergency services coordinator. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be experiencing the success that we're experiencing right now. So I'm, as a relatively new city manager, I'm grateful that the council established that. So these guys, the men and women in your departments are doing exemplary work, and the behind-the-scenes employees, those in public works and finance to make sure we have the funds to do this, and HR, our human resources, making sure we're able to have the staffing and have it work, and all the other departments that I'm overlooking, they're really stepping up, and they're working very hard. Again, I want to stress that we're all tired. We're working almost every single day, but honor and privilege to be in public service, so we're all grateful to be able to serve the El Segundo community during this very difficult period. So thank you for allowing me to make those final comments.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you very much, Scott. And again, thank you to the residents. We're here for your health and safety. Please reach out to us if you have any further questions.